Like on, right? Okay. Calling to order the City of West Sacramento regular meeting of the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission on May 1st, 2023. Do we have a copy of the land acknowledgement? I guess we'll have a roll call first. It's been a little while. Commissioner Sears? Commissioner Wynn?
Present.
Commissioner Banks?
Present.
Commissioner Zuniga?
Present.
Commissioner McCredden? Present. Commissioner Kashkouli? And Commissioner Hess?
Present.
Okay. Seeing that Commissioner Hess is the alternate and we don't have all the other commissioners, Commissioner Hess, you'll be a full acting member of the commission tonight. We have a copy of the land acknowledgement.
Nah. I do not have.
Okay. Well, I just want to acknowledge that we are on native land, and in future commission meetings, we will have the City of West Sacramento's land acknowledgement for the forum. We also do the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? I'll do it tonight. Ready? Okay. I want to make a quick note that anybody wishing to address the commission should fill out the request to speak and present it to the clerk. If you've not done so, please do so. We're going to move on to general administration function part 1. Item 1 is the swearing in of the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission, but we've already done that. So,
Madam Chair, there is one member who was not present at the first meeting, so I respectfully recommend that we continue that item to the subsequent meeting so that commissioner will have an opportunity.
okay, I concur. Thank you. Item 2 is election of the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission Chair and Vice Chair for 2023. Seeing that we're all new here, are self-nominations required? Do we have a nomination process?
So, Madam Chair, self-nominations are perfectly welcome. Folks are welcome to introduce themselves briefly if it suits the chair and decide at that point if they want to nominate other members or a member could just nominate themselves now and wait to hear what the results would be from a roll call.
I think that's a great suggestion. So let's have a self-introduction since we are all new to each other and we've only met once before in training. So we'll start with Commissioner Banks.
Hi, my name is Warris Banks. I work for the Sacramento Kings and the Sacramento River Cats as a security officer, and I am a law student online at the College of Legal Practice. And I live here, and this is my second year living in West Sacramento. I moved here from Philadelphia. I grew up in New York.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yen Nguyen, and I've been a resident of West Sacramento since 2019. And I am currently work at the Yolo County Health and Human Services Department.
I'll go next. I'm Commissioner Zimmer. I have been a West Sacramento resident since 2018. I've been on the commission since about that, pretty close to when I moved here. I'm an engineer with the State Water Resources Control Board, and so I have water resources engineering, but I've been learning a lot about transportation and city issues, mobility and equity and things like that. So it's been a good experience.
My name is Matthias Hess. I'm a professor at UC Davis, and have been living in West Sacramento for the last 2 years, and I'm a very avid biker, and I hope I can serve the city here by serving on the committee.
Senator Zuniga.
My name's Sarah Zuniga. I've been living in West Sacramento since 2020, and I work for CalRecycle. And I am I live in District 1, so representing Bright here.
Great. Thank you, everybody. So I guess I'm going to open it up to nominations for chair. And I guess we'll start with chair. And if anyone is interested and would like to self-nominate or nominate one of your other commissioners, please feel free to raise your hand. Or vice chair. Yeah.
I would nominate Valerie Simmer as chair.
Accept the nomination. Are there any other nominations?
Madam Chair, if there's a second on that,
Oh,
then
that's
we
right.
could go ahead and call a roll.
Is there a second on that?
I second.
Mr. Norwood, will you call the roll for the vote?
For the vote? A second.
No, I mean, we're looking for,
Oh, like who we're calling down?
right.
Okay, Wars,
We're looking for an aye or an A.
Aye.
Yin,
Aye.
Valerie,
Aye.
Matthias,
Aye.
and Sarah.
Aye.
And that is decided. I will act as commission chair for the next term. We also need a vice chair. So want to open it up? Nation?
In a situation like this, you could also, Madam Chair, you could decide at that point to put a nomination in and then have everybody call roll and vote.
I'm going to nominate Commissioner Nguyen. I'm smiling, so
I would second.
Wars,
Aye.
Yin,
Aye.
Valerie,
aye.
Matthias,
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
All right, Commissioner Nguyen has been chosen as vice chair term. And that brings to a close that item. Item 3 is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the commission. And I want to note that the commission is prohibited by law from discussing issues not on the agenda. Brought it to them at the time. We can hear, but we are not permitted to have any discussion. So do we have any public comments?
We do. We have two.
Great.
Charlotte Dorsey.
Good evening, and thank you for hearing me. I was the HR manager for a large nonprofit in Portland before I came to West Sacramento more than 20 years ago. I was responsible for employee newsletters as part of my job, and I'm well aware of information flow and deficits. So I would like to suggest, we have many new residents in West Sacramento coming from different places. I'd like to suggest that the city design a flyer, how to get around in West Sacramento. We have so many ways. We've got the bus, we have trail, we have bicycles, a lot of, we have VIA. For example, I heard somebody the other day say about VIA, oh, that's just an ambulance taking people to their doctor's appointments. A lot of misinformation. So if we could just have a flyer, a simple one-page flyer, it would include public transportation, shuttles, trails, sidewalks, VIA, et cetera, and links to them. It could be just one page, also included on the city's websites. And we have a small contingent of residents who would be very willing to distribute paper flyers. We've done that for John Robinson in the past, all around the city, so that everybody could get the information. So thank you for listening. I think information is very important, and thank you all.
Thank you very much for your comment.
And we have an Alex, or Alan? Sorry.
Hi, I'm Alan Hirsch. Yeah, hope you have my handouts here. You'll notice in the lower right, there's a little Lorax. Because if you have a tree, you live in Brighton, Broderick, I have knocked on your door, I guarantee it, as a contractor for the city, and I have made, if you have a tree, it's about 15 years old, I planted it or organized the planting back in 2002 and 2007. So I'm no stranger to West Sacramento. I come to you because you have an opportunity this evening to make a difference on climate. And it's a matter of just studying something, putting some attention on something. That's the widening of I-80. And we have not talked about this. This is in your scope, as I have put the quote from the city council, the city legislation right here. So you look at page 2, you see the map of the entire I-80 corridor from Sacramento all the way to Vallejo. And you notice the YOLO project is the upper right-hand corner. But you look at page 3, you will see actually that the entire corridor has lots and lots of projects on it. What Caltrans is doing is they basically study, don't basically reveal the entire scope of the thing. And we basically have a whack-a-mole approach to basically fixing freeway congestion. We fix this bottle, just fix this one last bottle, not going to be fixed. And that's what the causeway is. And that we have not studied, this has not been discussed in front of the Yolo County Transportation District. This map has not been presented to them. It's not been presented to the West Sec. Even though your city is listed as a contributor, you're not presented this. And this has not been discussed because it's very uncomfortable. If you look on page 4, you'll see the traffic study. This is presented to the Yolo County Transportation. Basically, if you widen the freeway, you encourage people to drive more. It's almost 1-to-1. You add 33% more freeway lanes, you get 33% more traffic. You get more lanes of congestion. If you make that lane a tool lane, it's still going to be congested. And get real vehicle miles traffic. And it's so uncomfortable to deal with this difficult. On this side, you'll see basically Don Saylor, supervisor, says this is an environmentally sustainable freeway widening. They're expecting to widen the entire freeway through Yolo County. He says it's an environmentally sustainable. You can't, an environmentally sustainable freeway widening, that's a contradiction. Then he says, we're going to turn it into a toll lane, and that'll be socially equitable. That seems to be a contradiction. This needs to be looked at, and I'm asking you tonight to step up and look at this project. It's in your scope. Slide 6, you see, widening the freeway encourages Tahoe traffic. We're going to kill the snow in Tahoe by making people go to Tahoe. The causeway is the bottleneck. It always will be the bottleneck. You can't get around this thing. Page 7 is the alternatives analysis. The environmental impact statement is coming out in June. This is your chance to basically have some input on it. I encourage you. The public needs to have some input. We need to discuss this thing. And page 8, this is what I'm asking you to do this evening. You need to put this on your next July agenda. This is the only chance for you to weigh in on the draft environmental impact statement. And you should form a subcommittee so a couple of you can look at this in depth so you can present it to the entire committee, because this is going to be a big document. Please, this is your opportunity to make a difference on climate change. Please, please, if you don't do this on our watch, we need to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Okay, are there any other public comments?
There are not.
Item number 4 is disclosure of ex parte communications. And I believe ex parte communications are any communications by any commission members with an interested party on any item that's on the agenda tonight. Is that correct? So if any of you have, for example, been talking to an electric car manufacturer about our electric EV charging stations in West Sacramento, that would be the. So commissioners, are there any ex parte communications that you would like to disclose at this time?
None.
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. We need to approve the February 6th, 2023 Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission minutes. I was the only one present at that meeting. Hope that others of you have had a chance to review those minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minute?
Motion to approve the minute.
Commissioner Banks, second?
I second.
Okay, second. So we will have a vote on that. Commissioner Banks? Aye or nay?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Hess?
Aye.
Commissioner Zuniga?
Aye.
And I myself. Okay, the minutes from the February 6th, 2023 meeting have been accepted. So we will move on to the regular agenda. Item number 6, presentation on proposed electric vehicle charging fees in the city, book of fees for city council consideration. Hand this to city staff.
Good evening, Chair Zimmer and members of the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission. My name is Stephanie Chan, and I'm the Senior Transportation Planner with the Community Development Department. Tonight, I'll be providing a presentation on staff's proposed electric vehicle charging fee policy for the City of West Sacramento's electric vehicle supply equipment, also known as EV chargers. For some background, in October of 2013, the city installed its first electric vehicle charging station at City Hall. Currently, the city has one dual-port Level 2 charger at City Hall and 2 dual-port Level 2 chargers at Bridge District. Dual-port just means that they have 2 ports, so 2 vehicles can be charging at the same time. Between 2014 and 2022, the city has supported over 31,000 charging sessions, providing over 372,000 kilowatts of electricity. On average, vehicles tend to stay and charge for 2 hours and 52 minutes of active charging, and they remain plugged in for another hour and 11 minutes. All this electricity has, staff estimates, cost the city $85,000 between 2014 to 2022. In December of 2018, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments awarded the city $2,665,000 for the plug-in partnership program through the Green Region Grant. For the this plug-in partnership program, the city has committed to install EV charging stations and collaborate with freight and business community leaders to encourage medium and heavy-duty fleet electrification to support increased adoption and use of zero-emission vehicles. ChargePoint, an electric vehicle supply equipment company and the provider for the city's existing EV chargers, is partnering with the city to provide the 11.47% local match met through in-kind donations through labor and equipment. Construction for the EV charging stations began in mid-April, so about 2 weeks ago, for the installation of 10 single-port L2 chargers, 26 dual-port L2 chargers, and 12 single-port DC-FC stations. The difference between level 2 and DC-FC stations are just how fast they can charge a vehicle. A level 2 charger can typically charge a vehicle to full capacity in about 4 hours versus a DC-FC station will charge a vehicle within an hour. A map of these locations is provided on the right of the slide, and then a breakdown of the equipment by site is provided in attachment 1 of the agenda report. Per California Government Code Section 66016 to 66018 and Proposition 26, the city may impose a charge for specific government services or products provided directly to the fee payer that is not provided to non-payers. The amount of the fee may not exceed the reasonable cost of the local government of providing the service. So this just means that we're allowed to charge a fee to people who are using a specific service that the city is providing. The city staff has estimated costs to provide EV charging stations as shown on this slide. This includes electricity, charge point fees, that meaning that because we have these charge point stations and we are charging a fee for that transaction cost of the credit cards, charge point takes a 10% cut on the overall cost of the session that is onto the driver. Operation costs, maintenance costs, site leasing fees. We have one site of the 12 sites where we're adding EV charging stations where we are providing a fee for maintenance of the parking lot, and that is to Lighthouse Charter School because the city does not own that site. Program administration, it will take staff time to administer and track the program. and equipment and replacement because EV charging stations are estimated to have a useful life of 10 years. Oh, sorry, I have one more point on this slide. Staff estimates that the city needs to set the fees to a net recovery of approximately $430 per day for L2 stations and $486 per day for DCFC stations to support the cost of the EV charging program. Staff has proposed a policy for partial fee recovery. So on this slide, you'll see that we are proposing a fee of up to 35 cents per kilowatt hour and DCFCs of 45 cents per kilowatt hour. Charging station time limits will be posted at each station. So 3-hour charging time limit at Lighthouse Charter School. That was what the school has asked the city to put the charging time limit at versus the 4 hours at the other sites that the city has proposed based on an analysis of charging data of the current chargers that we have. And then a 1-hour charging limit for DCFCs. Additionally, staff is proposing 24/7 access to the EV chargers and are not proposing any free EV charging. Additionally, staff is proposing a penalty to ensure turnover at the charging stations. This ensures that there is appropriate use of the EV chargers when a vehicle is completed charging and other vehicles can utilize the equipment. Government code sections and the Proposition 26 mentioned earlier do not apply to penalties, so the city is allowed to charge penalties on top of the fees in order to operate and maintain the system. So an example of how the charging fee policy would work is shown on this slide. So if a Chevy Bolt driver is at, their battery is at 30 kilowatts an hour, their battery is currently at 30 kilowatt hours, and they would like to charge their vehicle, the full capacity of the Chevy Bolt's battery is 65 kilowatt hours, so that can support a total of 247 miles for their total range if they're fully charged. If they decide to charge at a level 2 station, it would cost them $9.10 for 26 kilowatt hours over 4 hours, and that would provide them 99 miles of range. At the 4-hour mark, the charger would end the session, stop charging the vehicle, and the vehicle will begin to incur a 50 cent per minute overstay fee until the vehicle is unplugged. The total maximum a person may be charged, inclusive of charging, is $300. In comparison, at a DCFC station, a driver would be charged $15.75 for 35 kilowatt hours over 37 minutes. That means that they'll be completed charging under the 1-hour time limit. After 10 minutes of the 37 minutes, because they completed charging, their vehicle will begin to incur that 50 cent per minute overstay fee until the vehicle is unplugged. The total maximum a person may be charged, inclusive of charging again, is $500 for DCFCs. I would like to note that ChargePoint is set up so that the drivers can be alerted that their vehicles are fully charged and that they would need to move their vehicles. And the difference between the maximum fees between a level 2 station and a DCF station is primarily because for larger vehicles that have a bigger battery capacity, a DCFC station will need that higher penalty or maximum fee range in order to allow them to charge it full, but also for us to get that penalty. Otherwise, we would be paying for their electricity costs beyond that. Mm-hmm. This slide provides a example or a survey of nearby EV charging fees. As I mentioned earlier, staff is proposing a fee policy that will recover partial costs. A full cost recovery model may not be competitive, deterring the public from using the city's charging stations as compared to nearby lower cost or free EV charging stations. More details and additional locations are provided in attachment 2 of your agenda report, and then also attachment 3 of your agenda report provides you with different policy scenarios that city staff had looked at, so that you can compare how much a total fee recovery would, what price would the city would have to set the fee policy at to recover complete costs. In the development of the plug-in partnership program, city staff incorporated equity in the site selection and initial installations of the EV charging stations. As you can probably note from the map of where we are placing these stations through this initial effort, the majority are located within the city's disadvantaged communities as defined by Senate Bill 535. This is consistent with the city's commitment to equity as outlined in the city's general plan, Healthy Communities element, the Mobility Action Plan, and the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change. The city could explore ways to offer greater accessibility to EV chargers in disadvantaged areas, or possibly provide a discounted charging rate based on an income qualified basis. This would need to be further explored and developed, but staff has included $65,000 in the city's biannual budget process to support 2 years of benefits for city council consideration. The city budget, biannual budget, will be brought to city council in May. One of the tactics identified in the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change is to work with major employers, including the state of California, to encourage zero-emission vehicle adoption and sustainable commute habits through transportation development management programs, management of parking privileges, and providing workplace charging options where possible. As such, staff is proposing an employee charging program to encourage and support the use of EVs as an alternative to internal combustion engines. City employees can join the program for a $5 monthly fee, and there would be no additional cost for them to charge their vehicles. They will still be subject to overstay fees in order to keep those spots available for the demand. And for the city of West Sacramento to develop and offer an employee EV charging program is aligned with what the city is encouraging from employers and can be one model to initiate and administer such a program for other employers to follow. So staff recommends that the TMI Commission recommends City Council adopt the proposed fee policy. I am available, as is the parking program manager, Larry Lee, for any questions at this time.
Yeah. Can we just go ahead and ask?
Sure. I was going to say thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much.
for your presentation. I appreciate that. I guess maybe we should ask if there are public comments before the commission. We have public comment on this
Yeah,
item.
we have Ellen.
Okay, great.
I'm new to this, but I've commented on this in the city of Davis. The people who use this are the people in apartment complexes, the people in the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. So there's a social equity here. And I would urge you to, especially the overtime parking, that's pretty confiscatory, that's pretty high. And people leave the cars overnight. You expect people to move them right on the dot. So I think you need to kind of figure out, maybe there's a grace period or something, but I think this is going to impact mostly the people who don't have their own home and can't install one of these chargers. These social equity should be front and center on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No further comments.
No further comments. Okay, commissioners, comments, discussion?
Yeah, actually, that was a great segue. I have a question about the overstay fees. I noticed in the slides you mentioned the DCFC chargers have a 10-minute grace period, but do the L2 chargers have a grace period?
Yes, both DCFC and L2 chargers have a 10-minute grace period.
And then also in winters, they have the 30-minute grace period. So I was just wondering how you guys landed on 10 minutes instead of maybe a little bit longer, like in winters.
I defer to you, Jason.
So just based on experience that we have with our EV chargers, we have a lot of people who are overstaying an hour and a half at a time. That means that there's a substantial number of people who are unable to charge or who will be waiting to charge when someone is just out and about. We also had a discussion on this. As someone who drives an EV, it is possible to game the system, and I can tell my car to only charge up to 20 kilowatts per hour, in which case I could stay there all day if I wanted to, or a long period of time, and go into Sacramento, go work, come back, pick up my car, and not have a single fee, and it'll still show as being trickle charging, meaning that it's a way that people can just park their vehicle and leave it. That's not what this is for. This is intended to be a public benefit for folks who need to have the charging to get where they need to go at a reduced cost of that of an internal combustion motor. So with the equity portion of it, it is arguably more equitable to have people move their vehicle in a timely fashion to give other people an opportunity to charge. And so for us, we believe that a 10-minute grace period is sufficient. As Stephanie had mentioned, ChargePoint does notify its customers through the app that their car is charged. And so that's usually, it tells you right when it's starting to slow charge. And then you have a 10 minutes period after that. And then after that, you have per minute that you get charged the 50 cents. So you're not going to just suddenly get a $300 charge or a $500 charge. There'll be a lot of opportunity for folks to go in and actually unplug their car. But what we're trying to get is responsible behavior.
Good evening, members of the commission. If I may also add to that, I'm Larry Lee, the city's parking manager. I do want to say too that it's really important that as we bring these electric vehicle chargers online, it's really important that we get compliance and maximum usage of them. The city over the last several years with its existing chargers, we received a lot of complaints from residents and employees that vehicles are staying in these EV charging stalls for a very long period of time. And as noted in the staff report, that can really discourage EV usage, and it's really important that we turn over these spaces. And also, typically for parking violations, the typical grace period is 5 minutes for officers to issue tickets. So if it's a 1 hour zone, the enforcement officers, typically it would be like a 5 minute grace period. So they'll get an hour and 5 minutes. So 10 minutes is a little bit more, how do I say it? Lenient, right? So, so yeah, that's my addition.
Commissioners, any follow-up comments or?
Well, it sounds like it sort of, it would benefit people to have a smartphone or some kind of device to notify them, because if they don't have that kind of device, then they might not, get those notifications, and then they may, maybe they're a little bit off on coming back. And I just think 10 minutes seems like a really tight time limit. But, I want to hear from other commissioners as well about that.
Commissioners would like to make a comment? Yes.
I think I hear both sides, and I think 10 minutes, I agree, is a little tight. I wonder if there is a way to, let's say, have after 10 minutes grace period, having a reduced penalty fee for another 10 minutes and then have the full fee kick in. I mean, I'm sure you guys did the math, so, and compared to other situations, but I wonder if this is a little bit of if there would be kind of the opportunity to kind of get people used to it, and also taking care of situations where people might just finishing up their laundry or their coffee or what they need to do to get back to the car on time. Just an idea.
So commissioners, what we'll ask you to do is to provide comments in the form of recommendation to the city council. So if there are specific recommendations, then it helps staff to understand what to present to the city council and to help guide them in their decision-making process as well.
Well, I would recommend to increase the grace period to 30 minutes.
And I think I would actually try to have a grace period of 10 minutes and then having a lower penalty fee for 10 minutes. I think it's 50 cents right now, and I would say if after 10 minutes, for an extra 10 minutes, maybe 20 cents per minute. And then after the full 30 minutes, then actually going full to the 50 cents as proposed before.
Commissioner Hess, that's a great suggestion. I do just want to point out that ChargePoint, who we are using to enact these fees, there are system limitations to it. So sometimes the system will only allow you to do certain things. So something like that, ChargePoint may or may not be able to do it. It's something that we can certainly look into, though.
I think if you could look into that, that might be a great solution. In my opinion.
Madam Chair, we'll be looking for the commission as a whole to provide a recommendation. So we'll need you to discuss and to actually vote on what your recommendation will be.
Thank you very much. I still have some additional questions before I can decide. I'm sort of backing up a little bit. And it seems like the city is tremendously expanding its EV charging capacity, and that our existing EV charging capacity, just doing some math in my head, it seems like it's kind of being used all the time. Is that correct? So we're very much underserving the demand. And so I guess my question is does the city staff have any idea what the demand actually is in the near term, or are we looking at long term? Because if there's a huge demand, then this, I think, short grace period does make a lot of sense. But if we are still very much building demand, then maybe a longer grace period, at least in the interim period, before everyone has an EV, makes more sense. I guess that's the question. Do you have a sense of what the demand is?
So the answer to that is that we do not have a sense of the demand with the number of chargers that we are adding. If you look at attachment 3 with the proposed fee policy scenarios, that's why staff developed different scenarios, like 5 different scenarios, with each with different charging session per day. So with that in mind, I guess I should have been a bit more clear. This is the city's staff's proposed pilot fee policy. We will be analyzing and watching this proposed fee policy over the next couple years and coming back to council if we feel that there needs to be adjustments.
So you're going to have a pilot program that will last a year, and then and see how that goes in terms of demand and fees and whatnot, and then come back to council a year from now. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct, or is it not that settled?
That's correct. And, we'd be coming back to the TMI Commission as well.
Okay, that's good. So
that's based on recommendations, though, from the city council. So that's staff's recommendation, but of course that could be subject to whatever their approval is.
And I also want to point out that for the overstay fee, we will also be looking at developing a process where the users can contest the fee, similar to a parking citation. So that way, if they're disputing that they didn't actually stay there or whatever reason they may have, they'll have an avenue to do that.
And then I'm just doing a little bit more math in my head, and I'm trying to understand the cost of charging an EV versus the cost of buying gasoline. And it seems like gasoline is maybe twice as expensive, 2 or 3 times as expensive. Is that correct? based on this fee structure, but that's not recovering all of the costs. The city is only recovering some of the costs.
Yes, that's correct. So, if you were to, I guess, fill up a half tank of your Chevy Bolt to get about 100 miles, I'm sure it might cost you $30 to $40. Like we showed in the slide previous, I'm sorry, not, if you were to charge via L2, it would only give you 100 miles, but it'll cost the driver $9.10. Versus if you were to charge as a DCFC station, it'll cost them, they would pay $15.75.
Okay, so I guess I have a question. I'm not trying to ignore the other question we had, but I'm thinking about costs and costs to the drivers and things like that, and cost to the city as well. And I'm just curious as to these costs. This might be from left field, but has there been any consideration of, I don't know, using some kind of solar battery system to maybe offset PG&E costs, or is that not actually going to?
I apologize for continuing to jump in, but I have been working very closely with Stephanie on this. So, one of there was a couple of parts to the plug-in partnership. One was to look at EV charging in general and expansion of EV charging citywide. The other was to look at what is the potential for medium and heavy duty EV freight charging. Now, the city worked with SMUD, we worked with Sacramento City, we worked with the county, we worked with Frontier Energy, and we looked at what are the potential sites that we could integrate medium and heavy duty charging in the city. Two of those sites rose to the surface, and we are actually going to be putting in pull-through DCFC chargers at both the new Courtyard off of West Capitol near Enterprise, and also on Elkhorn Plaza off of Sacramento Avenue. We'll have two 40-foot pull-through DCFCs. That allows for electrified transit, like EV buses, or medium to heavy-duty delivery trucks who are electrified, to just pull in, plug in, charge for a half an hour, and then go back through and continue to do deliveries throughout the city. So that was one portion of it. We also had recommendations from that general freight stakeholder working group that said to look into battery, solar-supported battery options. So one of the things that we're doing as part of that recommendation is here at City Hall, when you come into the back entrance over here, you'll see there is an empty shell of what was an EV charger before a vehicle caught fire and burned it up. So we are actually going to be replacing that with a battery-supported free wire charger. So it's a DCFC, as an ultra-fast charger that can charge a vehicle in a half an hour, but it does not require the same infrastructure that a regular DCFC requires. And that's because it contains recycled batteries from previous EVs. Now, we're using this as a demonstration to see how does it function, how is it working, what's the longevity. We understand it's a 10-year battery life on it. So we expect that it will last. We also have a 5-year warranty that we're putting on it. But that particular model is also able to be solar supported. So depending on how it functions and if we're very comfortable with it, then the city is going to look into potentially locating here on the other side of City Hall some solar supported free wire chargers or similar. So we are looking into it. We don't have the infrastructure or the funding available now to do it, but we figured it was a good opportunity to test run this free wire charger.
I will also note that that is being brought to City Council for consideration May 3rd. So subject to City Council, like.
That is subject, yes. So we're doing it subject to City Council approval.
Thank you. Yes, I feel like I have a million questions. I don't mean to dominate the conversation. But I am learning actually more about EV cars than I had known before. So very informative, and I appreciate the depth and the detail in your presentation. And I guess I want to bring it back to the question of cost and equity, and maybe the purpose of our pilot program. I think I am hearing a little bit through some of my commissioners' concerns and also through your documents, that equity is a part of this effort. And there are some concerns that, you know, it's great that we're bringing chargers to, I think that some of these locations are near apartment buildings, as Mr. Hirsch pointed out. The apartment users are going to be benefiting from this a lot. And I do think there are some concerns about the cost, and we want to make sure that if we're targeting equity, that we do have some consideration for that. So I just wanted to bring this conversation back to that and give the staff an opportunity to maybe comment if they would like on the equity question and the locations, why they were chosen in those spots.
I can jump in on that as well. So, so this was when we had initially developed the grant application and submitted that to the Green Region. Equity was a component, and that was working toward, again, the medium and heavy duty freight components so that we can provide public freight EV charging and also for electrified transit. The other portion of it was to specifically try to identify sites in disadvantaged community zones. So that's SB 535 designated disadvantaged communities. So Bright and Broderick, in particular, that area in portions of the Washington district, also in West Capitol area, adjacent to Joey Lopes Park. These are all areas specifically identified because they're in disadvantaged community zones and because there's available infrastructure per our coordination with PG&E. So there was I would say, almost a year-long process for us to go through and say, where is a disadvantaged community site and where is there available infrastructure for us to actually put these chargers in? And once we started overlaying, we started identify, okay, these look like they'll work, and then we continue to explore that under this grant. So for us, specifically locating these in those neighborhoods, for those who are in apartments, for those who can't afford to put an EV charger in their home, was a priority. It's also advantageous because right now the state of California is providing more discounts for used EVs, whereas before there were no rebates offered. Those rebates are now available. And I believe at the federal level, but don't quote me on that, I believe that there are more rebates that are coming for used EVs. So we're thinking that there will be more of an opportunity in the future for those who are looking for either a fully electric or a plug-in electric hybrid for folks who are in disadvantaged community zones, who are low income, to be able to afford these vehicles. And that's why we are still working to try to keep the charging rate low while still at the same time paying for the equipment itself and making sure that we're being fiscally responsible in the city.
Commissioner Hess?
So just a question or two questions. Do I understand it correctly that we have a total of 22 charging stations, 10 single port and 12 dual port, right?
We'll be installing 10 single port L2s, 26 dual port L2s, and 12 single port DCFCs.
Okay, so that's even better. That's more than I thought we would be installing.
Yeah.
So the other question is, and that might be absolutely impossible, but is it possible to have different charging schemes at the different locations to actually find out? Because if I understand it correctly, your goal also is to make sure that they can be accessed by as many people as possible. So the question would be, which of these fee schemes would be encouraging to actually have that turnover? So I wonder if it's possible to have different charging or grace periods at these different locations selected randomly. Since this is a pilot study anyways, and that might give you the data that you actually need to figure out what the sweet spot is to achieve what you really want to achieve. And that might not be possible.
Yeah, I just want to say, yes, that's correct. So over this pilot period, that's something that we're going to be looking at. ChargePoint collects the charging data. So we'll be monitoring that and seeing if there are better ways to implement the fee. So it'll maximize usage. For example, maybe we offer a lower rate overnight when demand is lower. We'll be looking at everything.
And so if I would do this, I would just basically have these fees structured differently from the beginning, and then maybe swapping it over time if that pilot study is for a year or something like that, so you have these data collected right away.
I guess my comment to that would be that it is possible, because with the different sites, it's like a driver is going to that site for different reasons. Some of our sites are at the park, some are at City Hall, Community Center. Like some of them, like the Courtyard, actually would be like one of the sites where I don't exactly know if you would go there for another reason other than charging if you're a member of the public, if you're an employee of the city and you're working at that site maybe. So my only comment with kind of setting up a structure that is different across different sites doesn't really allow the opportunity for the city to kind of have control of like a kind of standard control, and then we can kind of figure out how to like adjust from there. It's like it'll be a lot of variables.
If I could jump in for one other thing also we want to avoid is we don't want to say, okay, in this disadvantaged neighborhood, we're going to make the price lower. What you're going to get then are people driving to that one site and causing a lot of traffic congestion just to get to that one EV charger. And then you wind up negating the benefits of putting that charger in and actually introducing more detriment to the neighborhood. So by keeping them consistent, you avoid that issue.
You have additional questions? No. Are there currently 3 dual port L2 chargers,
Yes.
did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
So I hear your concerns with the overstay that you're experiencing now, but I also hear that, you know, there's significantly less chargers than there will be. You guys say you'll add 10 single port L2, 26 dual port L2, and 12 single DCFC, which would be 48 additional chargers. So maybe that concern of significant overstaying won't be as much of a problem, and maybe the grace period would be reasonable, a larger.
I was wondering if you had any information on how nearby communities, how much they may have collected from overstay fees, because I'm looking at attachment 2, and I see that, like, for example, the city of Winters, their overstay fee is $2 per 30 minutes, starting 30 minutes after the vehicle is fully charged. You looked at that information perhaps to see, you know, whether or not the overstay fee is reasonable for our residents?
We have not, but we could ask. That's not necessarily information that I have found publicly, but we can reach out to the city of Winters and ask.
And I had another question regarding the monthly pass for city employees. Were you, was a monthly pass for city residents ever on the table, especially for residents living in these communities where these chargers will be placed? For example, you know, you're placing them in historically disadvantaged communities. If somebody was a resident living within proximity to these chargers, I feel like to encourage them to, you know, get an electric vehicle, I think a monthly pass would be more encouraging than just placing an electric charger in their community.
So that is a part of something staff can consider part of the EV charging equity program that was mentioned. We don't really know how we plan to structure that program yet, and it's also subject to city council direction and approval. It is, like I mentioned, included in the budget to provide $65,000 of benefits over 2 years. if that goes through, then city staff needs to work on developing a program, and that could be an option that we look at versus like a like reduced electricity fee for those like income qualified residents.
Any additional comments, commissioners? I'm sort of mulling this over in my head too. I appreciate all of your comments. I do think does seem a bit it does seem like it's a bit high. And I definitely hear what you're saying about people hogging the chargers and how that could be a problem. But we also have, I think, a training period. We have new EV drivers that we're targeting who may not know exactly how to properly charge their vehicles. And so we might, I don't know, I guess I kind of agree with some of the concerns that having really high, 50 cents per minute sounds like a lot. That can get expensive really fast. 10 minutes is not a long time, and 4 hours is plenty of time for a level 2 station. And for DCFC, having somebody park there all day long is obviously not great if it's a fast charging station. So maybe we need to be expensive on the more expensive fast charging stations and maybe a lighter touch on the others, or maybe it makes sense to have the same fees. But I think I also would support either a longer grace period or potentially a lower per minute fees, at least until we can assess whether we're meeting the demand in this. Like if we have a very light touch on overstay fees and grace periods, and we find that everybody's just hogging the charging stations all the time, then that would point to a need to change. But until we know that, until we have drivers, I think, trained that, I mean, if you're only spending $10 or $15 to charge, and then one day you end up spending $50, you'll learn your lesson. But I would be more concerned about spending $500 or $300. That seems like a lot.
Madam Chair, the way I like to think of it is the next time you go to the gas station, if somebody plugs in their car to pump their gas, and then they go to Bel Air and shop for an hour and a half, that tends to back a lot of people up.
Yeah.
So you have to think of it as if you would a service station, that as demand continues to increase, there's a level of behavior that has to be met. Otherwise, we wind up not breaking even with the cost of these chargers. And so it becomes really important. But we are completely open to the commission's recommendation, and we're happy to look at anything that you recommend.
I would also like to note that staff proposed a high fee because we are trying to reduce the administrative burden on our police officers to monitor and go out and give tickets to these vehicles and tow these vehicles away. So that is also partially why we considered a higher per minute fee.
I have another question, maybe that goes back to the charge points. And I think having a possibility, let's say if someone is violating the overstay or the charging time for the first time, if it's possible for the first time to basically implement a 10 cents per minute fee, and then the second time, a repeated violator, then basically imposing a higher fee, which then would, I think, give that warning. It's like if you're staying longer, you actually have to pay more. And I just feel like if we are targeting especially communities where money is a real issue, getting a bill of $300, that's just a lot. And I get the other point too, that we want to make sure that everyone can use it. But if there's a way that we can implement the first time offender really having a fee that is really gets the point across without having this enormous fee of $300 for one time charging, that might be a possibility. So I think it might just basically go back into what's possible from the app.
Stephanie, can you clarify, before someone gets a $300 charge, how long do they have to be at a charging station?
So they would be charging their vehicle either until it's full, or they're there for 4 hours for L2, or an hour for a DCFC, and then 10 minutes after that, they'll start getting charged the overstay fee. So, for example, in this Chevy Bolt, when your battery is only like a little bit less than half full, they would have been at that charging station for 4 hours and 10 minutes before they get charged a fee. At the DCFC station, you would be there 47 minutes before you're started to be charged an overstay fee. I would note that DCFC stations, because they are faster, I have seen a lot of people tend to sit in their vehicles and just wait for it to completely charge.
Would it be possible to do a different grace period for the DCFC versus the L2?
Yes, that's possible. I want to step back a little bit to Commissioner Hess's comment. I unfortunately do not think it is possible on the technology end to apply a different fee for repeated offenders of the overstay penalty. I have not seen the technology to be that advanced, unfortunately.
We can certainly talk with our charge point partner and see what's possible. Maybe the first one is a warning, but we'll have to speak with them to see what's possible.
If it's not possible, then it's off the table anyways, right?
Another question, do we know where the DCFCs would be placed?
Yes, so if you look at attachment 1, it will give you a breakdown of the EV charging equipment by site and tell you whether it's level 1 or level 2. Level 2 or DCFC, sorry. Oh, wait, yeah, yes, I did.
Oh, yeah. And the commissioners have access to the. Yeah, it looks like more of the fast chargers are closer to commercial district. But
Can I, okay, I'm just going to update my proposal. 30-minute grace period for L2 chargers and 10-minute for DCFC chargers is my proposal.
so Commissioner Zuniga just proposed a 30-minute grace period for L2,
Single and dual port.
for all L2, single and dual port, and a 20-minute for
The 10-minute that they originally proposed for the DCFC.
the DFC. And are you proposing a change to the fees as well?
No, I would keep them the same, but open to others. Yeah, I guess my thinking is, so when I hear your argument about the gas stations, but people at gas stations, it only takes a few minutes to put gas in your car. So when you're charging an electric vehicle and you know it's going to take a long time, like with the level 2s, it's reasonable to assume that somebody might leave for a little while. And so having to come back in 10 minutes seems especially tight for the L2s because they take longer to charge, but the DCFCs charge faster. So I think a tighter grace period is more reasonable for those.
Commissioners, comments?
I actually like that quite a bit. I think it's a reasonable.
Yeah,
but
I agree. I prefer just extending the period for L2 stations rather than changing.
I was wondering if there was technology, if the technology was available, if before you incurred an overstay fee, if you had a chance to, if you were away shopping, extended?
Right now, there's not that technology that I'm aware of, but there is an ability for users in their phone to essentially extend the charge limit on their vehicles. So, for example, I'm an EV driver, and I typically set my battery charge rate to 80%. But if I'm coming up on my charge, I could technically, like Jason was saying, I could game the system and change it from 80% to 90% or even 100%. So in that sense, yes, you could extend it. Unless your battery's coming up on 100%, then you wouldn't be able to do that.
And do I remember it correctly? So the idea would be to collect data for the next year and then bring back the data and present that, and then there would be a further discussion about or recommendations what the real structure might look like. Do I remember that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Commissioners, I believe if we want to make this recommendation official, we should have a motion in a second and then vote on that. Correct? If there is no further discussion on the recommendation proposed by Commissioner Zuniga of 30 minutes for the L2 chargers and 10 minutes for the DCFS high fast chargers, then do we have any motions to make the recommendation?
I would motion towards having 30-minute grace period for the level 2 stations and 10-minute grace period for the DCFC stations with the 50 cents per minute overstay fee as proposed before.
Here, second.
Second.
Commissioners, let's take roll call on this recommendation. Commissioner Banks, aye or nay?
Aye.
Commissioner Nguyen?
Aye.
Commissioner Hess?
Aye.
Commissioner Zuniga?
Aye.
I also aye. We have a recommendation, change the grace period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will come into the general administration function part 2, the commission calendar. I believe our next regularly scheduled meeting is July 3rd, but we have a special meeting as well, don't we?
Yes, we have a special meeting, I believe, June 6th.
June.
I believe June 5th.
June 5th.
Sounds right.
The next meeting will be June 5th. Item B, Director's Report.
Madam Chair, we do have a report from our Associate Transportation Planner, Steve Rosen.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Associate Transportation Planner Steve Rosen, and I'm here to share the news that May is Bike Month here in the city of West Sacramento and in the whole Sacramento region. The goal of May is Bike Month is to encourage people who haven't been bicycling lately to give it a try, and to try to get people who are familiar with bicycling to maybe replace some car trips with bike trips, because bicycling is fun, cheap, social, and healthy. We've got a lot of events planned to promote bicycling this month. It started yesterday, actually, with the bike rodeo on the Riverwalk in front of CalSTRS, which is a huge event, and lots of people were there, including Mayor Guerrero, who proclaimed May as Bike Month. Tomorrow, there's going to be a native plant tour. Wednesday is National Bike to School Day. There's CalSTRS group rides this weekend, a 5 and a 25 miler. Bike to Work Week starts on the 14th, and the official SABA and REI 916 Bike Month Bike Party is at Bike Dog in the Port Industrial area here in West Sacramento. So the whole region will be coming out to our city for that. And it's online Bike Month Bike Bingo all month long. And the heart of Bike Month is the ride logging competition which is sponsored by SACOG and SABA. And that's at mayasbikemonth.com, which is where you'll find the bike bingo cards as well. Riding bikes is better when more people are doing it, so hope we'll see you all out on the road. Thanks.
Thank you.
It was about
Quick question.
Yeah.
How have you been advertising that?
we use the city's social media platforms, webpage, and the partners, the private partners in the Bike Month have been pushing it all over the place.
So specifically for schools,
We want to, I don't know what the schools are doing. Sorry
because
to
I would
say.
love to bring that especially to the kids. I think
Yeah.
that would be really awesome.
It would be a lot of fun to do, get bike buses going. If anybody knows anybody at the local
That's a good
schools,
idea.
I'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
Very much. Item C is future item requests within the scope of the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission. I don't know if we're supposed to still have that on the agenda, but maybe this is a good time to discuss what is allowed, what we were allowed to have on our agenda. Are we allowed to make requests?
Sure. So the commission is, here's items that are specifically relayed to the commission by either the city manager or by the city council for items that are on our strategic plan, which is right there on the wall. So any of the items that are on the strategic plan as directed by the city council or by the city manager may be heard. So at any point in time, if the commission sees something on a specific plan management agenda or policy agenda that they'd like to hear more information on, I'm happy to agendize those items and we can have further discussion. So for instance, the I Street Bridge Replacement Project, the deck conversion project, anything that's on our management agenda, like our mobility action plan and implementation. Stephanie is in charge of implementing our mobility action plan and has provided updates in the past to the TMI Commission, or if there's specific projects that the commission needs to hear as directed by the city manager or by the city council, then we can do that. What we cannot do is hear any specific projects that are not on the specific strategic plan, as city council has not directed staff to look into those projects or projects outside of our jurisdiction.
Okay. So just to be real clear, is the project that was presented in public comment today within the city's strategic plan or jurisdiction, or is it not?
No, that is a Caltrans project outside of our jurisdiction. That's not to say that the city is not paying attention to that project. We are looking into it, and the city continues to coordinate with both Caltrans and Yolo County Transportation District in order to provide official comments to the draft EIR, for instance, that's coming out. That is not to say, though, that the commissioners can't be involved. So if, as a private citizen, you want to review the EIR and provide any recommendation to Caltrans on what you believe should be happening, then that's perfectly within your right. As a commission, though, the city already has a position that they'll be taking on a project and providing official comments on the EIR when it comes out. So we ask that you do not, in official capacity, provide rogue comments to Caltrans, and instead coordinate with the city, and we'll work to incorporate your comments as needed.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I'll state that even though sometimes we get public comments that are outside the jurisdiction of the commission, we do appreciate hearing. So I want to say thank you. And we do still have an item C. Are there any future item requests within the scope of the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission, commissioners?
No.
No, okay. Hearing none?
No.
Oh, hearing none, then we go on to item D, adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Public comment period is over. The agenda item is already passed. That would be the agenda item on the electric vehicle charging. Well, sir, you're within your rights, so please, feel free. Could we get 3 minutes on the clock, please?
Thank you very much. On the strategic plan, you are required to basically hear things that affect the climate change. That's pretty important, I would say. And we also saw 0 by 2045 in there. And in that plan on page 31 on the executive summary, it says we will reduce driving. And this project goes right, the I-80 project goes right through your city. It affects congestion in our senior city because people get on and off of the freeway ramps. It'll increase traffic. It'll increase pollution in our city. The city has not taken a position. If the city took a position now before the hearing, that would be illegal for the council. So you are in your rights to present. There's no city position on this project at this point. You are totally thinking. And also, on the front page of the thing I sent you the description of what your scope should be, and it clearly says you are to provide input to the Yolo County Transportation District. That's right in the city code. Please, this is your opportunity to basically speak up for climate change. You can listen to staff who wants to keep things under control, or you can push the envelope. And we're in a climate crisis, and I suggest it's time to push the envelope a little bit, to step up and say the citizens need to say the standard operating procedure of the transportation engineers at Caltrans are not appropriate. You need to stand up and you need to tell City Council this is important. We need to talk about this thing. I'm not suggesting what the alternatives are, but you need to talk about this. That you're shutting down discussion of this project at this point from you, I suggest that's really a problem. That's not a, so please request, at least request that the discussion and a hearing from Autumn Bernstein from the Yolo County Transportation about this project, and you should hear this information, and you provide input to the City Council. Because this is $387 million project, and it's flying below the radar because it makes people uncomfortable because it's free money. But free money that puts us on the wrong way with climate change is not a good thing. At least in my opinion, you might come to a different conclusion. But please hear this thing. Please be heard. This is your moment to stand up for climate change. Don't let it pass.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. I think at this time, we are going to perhaps think about this and do a little research on the strategic plan. This commission is new, so I appreciate your input. You've been heard. And with that, I was going to move on to item D, motion to adjourn.
The meeting.
Commissioner Wynn, move to adjourn. A second.
I second.
Do we need to have roll call for this?
All those in favor would be just fine.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. With that, the meeting is adjourned. I'll see you in a month.
Thank you, Commissioner.